Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be doing a film comparison. So this is something I do in my head anyway when I'm looking at an older film versus a newer film. So I'm doing a couple of these this month. And this is going to be the more mature of them. The modern remake is PG, so it's nothing major. The one that it's remaking doesn't have a rating. It was shot in 1954. It stars Audrey Hepburn. And what on earth is his name? He's very, very ugly in my opinion. But he was very, very famous. Humphrey Bogart and then William Holden. So, disclosure, I don't like the older film. It's not that I don't like Audrey Hepburn. She's beautiful. She's a brilliant actress. Humphrey Bogart is ugly. He's just ugly, and he's the love interest. So, and they're really, really different in ages here, and it really shows. And the background is he really, really hated Hepburn. He hated the male opposite that he was playing. What was his name again? William Holden. So he was not good for this role, and it was his first role for Universal Studios. This was back during the studio system, so they owned them. And so it was, I think, originally supposed to be Cary Grant, who may have been a lot better because he might have had, you know, charisma and not be a irritating, very, very ugly man. I just don't like the way he looks. The modern rendition has Harrison Ford, who's, you know, better looking and, you know, can act and actually is a decent human being. I don't think Humphrey Bogart was a nice person. He very much insulted his co-stars on this. The female lead, I'm looking at the film here. I have a copy of this one. This is a modern one. I love this film. Julia Ormond and then Craig Kinner are the three in this one. So these are actually both based off a play. So the basics of this play, who's the author? Who's the creator of the play is Samuel A. Taylor. And the play was called Sabrina Fair. So both of these films are called Sabrina. The Sabrina Fair, the Broadway play, is the story of a young girl. She's a chauffeur's daughter of a very wealthy New York family. She goes off to Paris to work as an undersecretary, I think, in the diplomatic corps. So she grows up, she matures, she's very intelligent, she becomes very well read, highly articulate. And I don't know that she's there for a couple of years. And she comes back, and she had been previously madly in love with David, the younger of these Larrabee brothers, who are the family that her father works for, that she grew up with. And so she had been completely, utterly head over heels in love with him. And I'm guessing they didn't take too much from the away from the movies. David's a philanderer. He's very much a playboy. But she comes home and realizes David's kind of useless and falls in love with his older brother, Linus, who's far more intelligent. And she also finds out that her father's a millionaire. Yeah, he's been listening in on the older Larrabees on the phone and during business. And so he has bought and sold in the stock market along with Larrabees, so he's earned money that way. And it ends with her going off to Paris. Her father gives her the money because he's happy being a chauffeur. He's been there for years. And I believe Linus goes with her. So, now on to the film. Now, the original 1954 Sabrina, starring the absolutely, utterly beautiful Audrey Hepburn, who is gorgeous and a wonderful actress, and Humphrey Bogart, who's ugly. My opinion, he's ugly. And of course, he was miserable on this set. He did not like his co-stars. So in this story, you have Sabrina. Again, they make a big deal, both films make a big deal of the details of this massive Long Island estate and this Larrabee family. And David in this film is older. He's married multiple times. He's gone to various schools, whether he's flunked out or not. He's very much a playboy. He's very arrogant. He's very much a ladies' man who has no care in the world. And his older brother, Linus, in this film, the father is alive. So you have both parents are running a huge corporation, doing dozens of things, and he's partially running the corporation and working all the time. And he essentially has no heart. And it's like, yeah, he's the only living heart donor. So he's very, very cold. And David's the life of the party and completely useless. And in this film, she watches David. Her father's like, you need to stop paying attention to him. You're going off to Paris in the morning. You're taking a boat. She's going off to a cooking course in Paris. And so she sees David flirting with this young woman who is the daughter of another prominent businessman. And they kind of disappear. His thing is, and she knows what he's doing. He sends her off to meet him in the indoor tennis courts, and he brings champagne, and Sabrina kind of follows him. He knows, kind of sees that she's there, but she's not of any, she's been around. He grew up with her. She's not of any consequence. And he goes in there, she watches him romance this woman, and she knows this is what he does. And then proceeds to go home and try to commit suicide in the garage. So, and Linus stops her. He doesn't realize she's trying to commit suicide. She thinks it's just a mistake and she was trying to do something for her father because she lies to him. And she'd written a suicide note and everything because she's depressed because she will never have David and he doesn't see her as anything. She ends up going off, obviously living, catches her boat, goes to Paris, and takes this bizarre cooking class that one of the first things you see is them cracking an egg on the side of a bowl. As someone who, when I actually watch this, because I'm more familiar with the modern remake, I cringed because you're not supposed to do that because you could get eggshells in the bowl and no common chef will have you crack an egg on the side of a bowl. And she's cracked it in her hand and she's not paying attention, and she becomes friends with a much older man who's probably old enough to be her grandfather and who's in this cooking class. It's very, very weird. They have a friendship, and she grows up in Paris. And she comes home with a poodle. Why on earth they include this poodle? I don't know. It's a symbol of opulence or something. She's cut her hair. She's matured. She's at the train station. David picks her up, not knowing who the heck she is, and shows up and then realizes, oh, it's Sabrina. And it's like, okay, you look different. Yes, that makes no sense. And yes, I think it's in both renditions. It shows how much he's not paying attention. Because no matter what, if you get your hair cut, you still look like the same person, mostly. But he invites her to the party and starts romancing Sabrina. And he's engaged at this point. So his family gets very, very irritated because they realize what he's doing. It's like, you're messing around with the chauffeur's daughter. One, we like our chauffeur. He's been around for a very long time because Sabrina's in her 20s. And obviously he was there before that because he married the family's cook, who had since Sabrina's, he's a widower, so Sabrina's mother has been gone for a while. And so they're pissed. His family's like, you cannot be doing this. And David sits down on the champagne glasses he puts in his pants and gets his butt all cut up. And Linus goes in and tries to romance her. And he ends up kind of trying to keep her away from David by romancing Sabrina. And she falls for it for a while. He takes her about and pretends to be something he's not, which is someone with a heart who will actually take time off work. He's a massive, massive workaholic. And it kind of goes about where he's romancing her and taking her to Broadway plays and talking to her and kind of trying to get her to fall in love with him, which she does. Problem is, he also starts falling in love with her. In the meantime, however, this is with David, Linus realizes he's in love with her and tries to give David back and basically tells her this is the truth, kind of figures out, and he sends her off to an apartment in Paris. It's like, go back to Paris. And she'd been trying to convince him that she was happy in Paris. She thinks he would be too. And so he had booked her on a ship, the Liberty, and to go off to Paris, which even 1954 doesn't make sense because I'm pretty sure there would be planes at that point. But I think the Larrabees are very much into shipping. So they go out on a boat. And so he's going to send basically he gets her a ticket and he's going to send David to go with her, only David doesn't. She kisses him goodbye because she's not in love with David anymore. She's fallen in love with Linus. And David, whether he's in love or not, he's still happily with his fiancée. So Linus actually tries to shut down all the mergers and stuff that's going on between the companies, and David puts a stop to it, and essentially convinces Linus, like, I have a tugboat. You knocked me out for insulting her and calling her the chauffeur's daughter. This is in front of a board meeting. And essentially, it's go away. And catch this tugboat and go join her. And of course, the chauffeur is her father. And essentially, her father gets him there and gets him on the tugboat. And he admits, like, yep, you better be in love with her, because otherwise I'm pissed off. And I believe it's hard. I've only seen the film all of once, so I'm not as familiar with it. And I do believe, don't know if they admit the father has money in this version. So, and essentially, David catches the boat and him and Sabrina hug. There is no chemistry between these two at all. As is obvious, Bogart was married and he wanted his wife for the role of Sabrina. And he just couldn't stand her. He couldn't stand Audrey Hepburn at all. He did not want to be in this role. It actually did very, very well. The film itself did well. I think it won a couple of Oscars. Let's see. Did it win the Rare Awards series? Let's see. Is it showing me with the awards? I know it did really well. Let's see. Just reviews. Not much, but I know it was Paramount, not Universal. Sorry. Wrong company. Came out on October 15th, 1954 in the U.S. Let's see, is there any more information? It's all in black and white. Again, it's 1954. So it's about an hour and 53 minutes. But there should be. IMDb normally gives me awards. But let's see. No, not seeing. I know it did win some. I think it won at least one Oscar for the clothing, for the costuming, for Audrey Hepburn. So, and it got notoriety because it did really well. So, but I don't like this film. I don't like Humphrey Bogart. He's very, very ugly in my opinion. He has this really long face. It's very obvious that he's not happy in this role. And it's very obvious that he has no chemistry whatsoever with Audrey Hepburn at all. She has more chemistry with William Holden, which I think they do in another film together, and they have chemistry. So it doesn't really work because, again, she's supposed to be in love with Linus. So now we're going to move on to the film that I actually liked, which actually didn't do great in the box office. This is the version I have of Sabrina. So this came out in, I believe, 1995 with Harrison Ford and Julia Ormond, and then let's see, showing the same, the earlier screenplay. Samuel A. Tyler is the play. Who's the actual? Sidney Pollack is the director. So it looks like they had pretty much similar writers on the screenplay. So, and then Greg Kenner plays David. So in this version, it's a bit different. So there's no suicide. She doesn't attempt suicide. Same thing, they do the details of the different courts. I don't believe they have indoor, they may describe the same thing. I love the entries. Like, they basically, North Shore of Long Island, basically lived a girl. And she was the chauffeur's daughter. And Sabrina's, you see her, same thing. She's watching David romancing a girl. She knows exactly what he's going to do. She does not follow him in this one. And they don't go to the indoor tennis courts, which I think is really, really stupid in the first film. In this film, they go to the conservatory. So they're in a big, basically indoor garden, which has seating and stuff like that. And yes, he does kind of see Sabrina and ignore her. She had actually danced with him during dance lessons when they were young. And they're much closer in age, and I don't think Linus he's not as much older. There's not as huge a difference, though there is the actor and the actress have a similar age difference. So I think Harrison Ford was 9 years younger than Bogart when he did this film. So he was in his early 50s. And then she was in her 20s, I believe. So the entrance is kind of similar, though she doesn't really watch them because they're in the indoor conservatory. And she doesn't try to commit suicide. The other big difference is she's going off to be a photographer's assistant. and do an internship in Paris. So it's not a cooking class. And you see a lot more of her growing up in Paris. And she has an affair with the photographer. And she learns photography and how to, she's doing an internship with Vogue. That's what it says. So she's off doing an photography internship with Vogue. And I think maybe the Larrabees had sponsored this or something. The father's also, not Sabrina's father is still alive, but Linus and David's father is dead in this one. He's not alive anymore. So the mother is very much involved in the business. And David's still a philanderer. I don't think, however, he's been married. So he's younger. Both him and Linus are a little bit younger in this version, which kind of fits a little bit, makes slightly less on the creepy side. So she goes off. Again, she sees David, but she doesn't try to commit suicide. She does, I think, embarrass herself with David a little bit. And she ends up in Linus's bedroom. And he's packing, because he doesn't actually live at the estate. He lives in New York or Manhattan. He lives in Manhattan in an apartment. So he's just there for, I believe, their mother's birthday. A random party. Because they're Larrabees and they give random parties, and he shows up to do various things. And he leaves early to deal with business. And she's in his room for some reason, and until helping him pack or something. Because again, they grew up together. She was kind of like a little sister to them, because she was the only other child on the estate. So, and pretty much they talk. It's like he knows what, again, it goes back to the fact that Linus he's a workaholic. He's always been a workaholic. And I think Sabrina once asked what Linus was like as a little boy. And her father says he was smaller. So apparently he's always kind of been cold and not wonderful. But again, compared to Humphrey Bogart, who, at least in my watching of that film, was not charming, Harrison Ford is charming. I mean, obviously it's Harrison Ford. He's Indiana Jones and Han Solo. He's very, very charming. And he's no different here. So, and then she leaves. She goes to Paris. She does this photography internship. She meets this woman who tells her, one of my interesting parts of this film, who she sees Sabrina. She's like, you remind me of myself when I first came to Paris. I was poor. I had nothing. I sat in a cafe, drinking coffee, writing nonsense in a journal until one day I realized it wasn't nonsense. And I grew up in Paris. And that's what happens to Sabrina. She embraces her life. You see in the beginning, it shows on a pegboard in her room a picture of David, and it slowly is covered up by a bunch of other things. And she has an affair with this photographer, and she starts becoming a photographer herself and learning her eye and working on various different things. I believe his name is Louis. And yes, she has sex with him. It doesn't really show it. It does show the fact that they're in a bedroom together. There again, this is rated PG, so so there's nothing overt. And she cuts her hair, and she becomes very much different. She goes there with this kind of long, wavy hair, big glasses. She comes home, glasses are gone, hair is cut. She's far more suave. She doesn't have a poodle, as in Audrey Hepburn's. Again, she now has experience being a photographer, and she has a portfolio. So she comes home, similar to the original. David sees her, picks her up, doesn't know who she is. She doesn't at first realize this until it tips her off that he has no clue who the heck she is, which I still find very, very funny. It is a trope in films like this where you kind of have the makeover and the girl, all of a sudden, shorter hair, no more glasses, she somehow looks completely different. But she gives him directions to where she's going, and then he finally realizes she's Sabrina. She gets out of the car, he's like, what the heck? And he's invited her to his mother's birthday. Now, he's engaged. Now, the major difference is his fiancée is not a socialite. She's an up-and-coming pediatrician. She works in a hospital. She's played by Lauren Holly. is who she is. Again, her father, their last name is is the exact same as the last name. It's Tyson. And she's a millionaire. Her father owns a huge thing. I'm trying to think, what does Linus do when he's pissed off at his brother? They create something, whether it's a metal or something, that's practically bulletproof. Because I do believe Linus, there's a scene in here where he's yelling at David and he shoots a gun in his office and scares the crap out of his younger brother. So, but again, David's essentially in love. She's not just a socialite, she's a millionaire, but she's an up-and-coming pediatrician. So it's very different. Of course, it's the different times. So he tries to romance Sabrina. She knows exactly what he's doing. And again, he gets in a fight with his father and his mother. I believe Maud, his mother, threatens to kill him. She's like, I brought you into this world. I will take you out. Do not screw this up. His mother also likes Lauren Holly's character. Let me pull up. What is the character's name? Elizabeth Tyson. So that's her name. So the mother likes her. It's like, don't do this. I will kill you. But again, he sits down and hurts his butt because again, he's sticking champagne glasses in his back of his pants. Don't do that. And so his butt gets all cut up. So Linus goes, and he doesn't necessarily try to romance Sabrina. He realizes that's not stupid. He also realizes it's like, David's engaged. You know exactly what he's doing. And he tries to pay her off. And she's like, no. And then he offers her work. Because again, she's a photographer. So he does try to romance her in this. Only, of course, it's different. I think he takes her to Martha's Vineyard with him on the pretense of taking pictures of real estate. Because they're definitely very much into the real estate in this. And he does start taking her out, and she goes with him. And she does start falling in love with him. And again, she's kind of aware of what the heck he's up to. She's not stupid. But she is, he's giving her options to build her portfolio and work. So, and she does start falling for Linus, and she realizes that David is not of interest, because she'd kind of fallen out of love with him in the beginning by the time she got back. And Linus pretty much threatens David. And you very much see that David is still very much the playboy in this. There's a line that's similar to both films where Linus and their mother in this case, I think it was just Linus in the original, are leaving for work on a Monday, and David shows up and says, like, you're going to work on a Sunday? It's Wednesday. So it's not Monday, it's Wednesday. David's like, oh. And it's like, yes, you're irritating and you're not paying attention. And it's like, he's like, I resent you thinking I'm an idiot. It's like, I pay for your life. It's like, you have dozen degrees, you went to law school, you never use it, you never took the bar exam, you have languages you don't speak. I give you a salary for doing nothing, and you're useless. So it's like, you're just an idiotic playboy. And of course, Linus is a workaholic, and their mother is in the office a lot as well, which is one of the other differences between these two. It's updated. Again, the original took place in 1954. This place stays in 1995. And cats. Sorry. We have somebody joining us. This is a calico. This is Kendra. She's a teenage cat here. 12, 13. Getting up there in age. Calico. I've had her since I was a Peace Corps volunteer, so she's very much my cat. She's decided to join me this evening. So back to the film. So you had that similar romancing, only again, Sabrina's taking photographs. Kendra, do not touch my camera, or touch the computer, please. So, and it kind of ends similarly. So, and though it's on a plane. So he finally admits what's going on, and he's like, you're in love with David, not me. And she, again, there's instantly this idea that she was happy in Paris, and she thinks he'll be happy in Paris as well. Now, so he's basically bought her an apartment and is sending her back to Paris. Her father, as she's packing, because she knows she's going alone. She's not expecting David or Linus to come with her at this point. And her father admits that Linus's father didn't close the window on him, so he bought and sold with the Larrabees. And so she asked her father, it's like, are you telling me you have $1 million? He's like, closer to 2 million. Like, your mother and I were happy. She was a cook, I was a chauffeur, we were happy here. Her father is very much implied that her father enjoyed being a chauffeur because he could sit around and read. Like, he's waiting for his employer, he just sits around and reads. And you see piles of books everywhere, which is something you don't see in the original. And I think it gives a little bit more character, because in the other film, it's like he's just trying to tell his father, Sabrina, to what to do. And she's like, yes, father. Yes, father. My husband is making noise. Trying not to wake our toddler. Moving on. So you get a little bit, I enjoyed this film better because you see more of the character of the other people in the house. So basically her father says, I have $2 million, take it, go back to Paris. You were happy in Paris. And so she says goodbye to them and she leaves. Meanwhile, Linus tries to end this merger with Tyson. And David figures it out. Basically, he tells her, here's a ticket, go. Go to her, she loves you, you love her, go to Paris. Well, David's not buying it. And then so David's actually a little bit more, I think he's a little bit more intelligent here. Linus had called a board meeting. And however, David catches on. He says goodbye to Sabrina. And he does something else. He talks to his secretary, to Linus's secretary. It's like, and his mother, and tells her what's going on. And essentially, the secretary and Maud, Linus goes to Linus's apartment and packs a bag for him. And David has her switch the ticket to the Concorde. Again, it's 1995, so the Concorde still exists. That's the super fast plane they stopped running because it was really expensive and it was really, really loud. So massive sonic booms, irritating people. And it just wasn't profitable to run the things. But again, this is 1995, so the Concorde still exists and can still get you places faster. Sorry, I have a cat messing with a microphone cord here. Because cats, yes, you're irritating, Kendra, but you're cute and you're fluffy. So, moving on. So David does all of this, and there's a huge board meeting. And David actually, after Linus tries to send him to Paris, he asks the secretary, where's my office? And so he goes to his office and does a bunch of stuff. So they have this board meeting. David comes in, and Linus is like, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be on a plane? He's like, nope. And he kind of calls his brother out and says, like, so she almost insults Sabrina. It's like, this is the chauffeur's daughter who was going after me. And then she decided to see the big thing and go after Linus. And Linus knocks him out. He's like, see, you love her. You really do. And it's like, and then he's essentially kind of tries to take over the merger. And it's like, he tells his brother, it's like, you've been copying me on a bunch of stuff. You just assumed I didn't read. So apparently David's actually been paying attention all this time. He's not really a goofball. And he tells his brother, I switched your flight to the Concorde. It's leaving like an hour. The car's downstairs. We packed a bag for you. He was like, who? It's like, yep, secretary. It's like, we went through your underwear drawer, which is just very, very funny. And then his mother says, Linus, I love you, but it's time to run away from home, which is one of the lines I absolutely love in this film. It's like, his mother is like, you're a workaholic. You've fallen in love. I'm not unhappy about this. Run away. Go. David apparently can handle things. So he's like, apparently I have a plane to catch, grabs the bag and the ticket and runs downstairs. And of course, Fairchild is the chauffeur and they get stuck in traffic. And Linus looks at him and says, go ahead and say it. And he's like, you don't deserve her. He's like, I know that, but I need her and I don't need anybody. And so she may have changed apartments since obviously she doesn't want to be beholden to him. And again, Daddy hasn't had, her own father has $2 million. So her father gives Linus the address and basically says it's time to run for it. So he gets out and goes to run to catch the Concorde. And the next scene is Sabrina getting out of a taxi in Paris, and him kind of walking up to her, and she says to him, "I thought it was a lie." He says it was a lie. It was a dream. And basically he says, "Save me, Sabrina Fair. You're the only one who can." And then they kiss, as opposed to the lukewarm hugging of the last film. So I love this film. It's definitely a coming of age thing. It's more of a teen film. The original one is very much, if you're looking at old films and want to look at old Audrey Hepburn black and white films, it is a romance. But you can also, as homeschoolers, you can get something out of this. Sabrina very much comes into her own. She, as opposed to some of the teen romance films, she gets a makeover, but it's in her own time, in her own place. She's not changing herself for a boy. She escapes from the crush that she has and grows up and comes home and finds a different prospect and realizes that she's not the same, and that the boy that she loved as a young girl doesn't fit, and she finds a man, as opposed to David, who's still kind of young and flirtatious, and he's better off probably with his pediatrician wife, and he grows up himself. And Linus, the workaholic, realizes that he can fall in love and that he has better things to do. And she basically realizes she can survive on her own. She gets a bunch of money, and leaves on her own, and he goes after her. And it's less of her. Basically, it's a better romance in the fact that she doesn't chase him. There's a bit of a lie going on, but he's also deceiving himself. So there's no rapey, chasey things which you see in some of the bizarre rom-coms. I hate that trope where the guys are just a major dickholes and do some stuff that's very, very stocky. So again, Linus was technically supposed to come with her. And yes, he kind of walks out of the dark in Paris at night. But again, he's not really stalking her. Her father gives her the address, and she was whether she was not expecting him, but she's not surprised to see him, in a sense. And yes, kind of was a lie, but it was the chauffeur's daughter, and she realizes he was buying her off. She never, in this film specifically, she almost always realizes it. It's never, he's very open about trying to pay her off in the beginning, and she says no. And so what he tries to do is he tries to distract her by giving her work as a photographer and kind of entertaining her a little bit, and they become friends. I believe this happens over a matter of a couple of months. So it's not that short a time. And again, they're also both adults. She's in her mid-20s and he's in his 50s. She's not old. He's not, in this one, I don't believe she's old enough to be his father. I mean, yeah, maybe. But still. They've known each other since he was probably a teenager. So I don't think the character is played as young. And Harrison Ford ages really well. So he doesn't look old enough to be her father. I'll say that. Humphrey Bogart does. He looks very, very old, and he's not into it. Harrison Ford is. There is actual chemistry in this one. This one doesn't have as high an IMDb rating. Yeah, this just has a 6.3. The original has a 7.7, but that might be because more of nostalgia. That more has to do with the love that this is an old classic. That's an old classic film, as opposed to this. And there are people who like Humphrey Bogart and Audrey Hepburn. Again, I saw this. Again, this is my copy of the film of Sabrina first, and enjoy it a heck of a lot more. Because again, there's more chemistry between the actors. and it's kind of more entertaining. So as you see, Sabrina's, I mean, she becomes a photographer. She's not just training to be a cook. She has a love affair in Paris, as opposed to spending time with learning how to cook with a man who could be her grandfather. So you get much more of Paris. They shoot in Paris opposed to a Hollywood backlot there. And it's a more entertaining film. If you like old classic movies, you can watch the original Sabrina. I love Audrey Hepburn, but I really do not like Humphrey Bogart. He's very, very ugly in my personal opinion. And it's very obvious that he's very, very miserable in this film. He cannot hide it. And there's no connection with the two at all. So in the more 1995 version, there's chemistry between these two actors. So you see that. There's no chemistry between Julia Ormond and Greg Kinnear. It is very much puppy love, and you see that. And she's a woman with Harrison Ford's character Linus, and you see her coming into her own much, much, much more. Again, there's no poodle. The fashions in both are decent. Again, Audrey Hepburn, she's a classic actress. I love her style. If I was going to emulate any old actress's style, it would be Audrey Hepburn's. It's simple. It's elegant. In this one, I'm trying to think. It's been a while since I've seen it. She's dressed very, very well. I think they tried to emulate it. I'm going to pull up some of the photos here. Yeah, it's very similar. It's very simple in the clothing and in the fashion. And it's very 90s, very, very sleek. She does try to emulate Audrey Hepburn's very simple looks and very elegant looks. So they're both brilliant actresses. Again, I like the modern version because I like the Sabrina in this one. I think it fits a little bit more with the play from what I've read, because again, Sabrina goes after and connects with Linus because she's grown up and changed, and she's matured. And Linus is more at her intellectual level than David would be, who's still kind of young and flirtatious, as opposed to the Audrey Hepburn film, where she's gone off to be a cook, and why she's kind of become more sophisticated. She hasn't grown up quite as much. It has a different vibe to it because, again, in the modern film, she has an affair. She legitimately has sex with this photographer by the name of Louis. And she's completely changed. And so it's a different dynamic. And Julia Ormond I think she may have been a tad bit older in this film. Let me see. I'm going to pull up her. And let's actually go back. I'm going to pull up the IMDb page, get out the photography here, and pull up her. She would have been... loading line. Let's see. Yeah, she was born in she's also British, so she was born in 65, and this was in 1995. So yeah, so she's I think a bit older than Audrey Hepburn would have been when the filming shot. In fact, let me see. I'm gonna pull up my calculator here because I do not do math when this happens. So let's see. And yes, I'm using a calculator. How old is she? So yeah, she was 30 when this was filmed. So as opposed to Audrey Hepburn, this was 65, this is 1954. So how old was she? So let's see, let's pull up. She was born in 1929. So 1954, subtract 19, what was it, 29? Yeah. Yeah, she was 5 years younger. So she was 25 when this was shot. And let's do a quick, see if I can see the age difference, because Bogart was... How old was Bogart was born in, let's see, He was born in wonderful. He was born in the 1800s. So let me pull up my timing here. So 1954, subtract 1890, was it 99 here? Yeah, 1899. So he was born in 1899. So when this came out, yeah, he was 55 as opposed to Harrison Ford, who would have been, who looks very old now. Let's see. So Ford was born in 42. So let's bring that up. And this was filmed in 95. So yes, I still can't do math in my head. And he was born in when? 42. So yeah, he was 53 to Julia Ormond's 30. So as opposed to the 25 to the 50-something, to the much older 50-something. So age difference slightly different. And again, there's charisma between the two. So Bogart was just, okay, not in my opinion. So yes, I did calculations during a video. My husband's the math person, not me. I don't do this type of math in my head. It's the reason I have a history degree and a library science degree. Don't do math. But again, as much as I like classic films, I can't get over the fact that there's no connection between Audrey Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart. It's very obvious that he cannot, as I said, keep repeating this. He does not want to be in this movie, and it's just really, really obvious. As opposed to Harrison Ford, who's having fun with this, and Julia Ormond, who's also they're enjoying this, and she has a bit of a British accent, which makes more sense because both of her parents were British, so she would have grown up hearing the British accent, and she grew up on Long Island, so it makes a little bit more sense. Mind you, Audrey Hepburn is Dutch, if I remember correctly. She's Dutch because she had issues. Bring up Hepburn here. Ugh. I'm sorry, people who like Humphrey Bogart, I just don't see it. I don't see it. Sharing a picture of him, he's not appealing at all. But Hepburn was Brussels, Belgium. So she was from Belgium. So again, she was European, but she was from Belgium as opposed to England. So that's really it for this review. I do recommend both films. If you're looking for old classics and you're kind of wanting to see Audrey Hepburn's work, have a look at the 1954 version of Sabrina. If you're looking for a good film to kind of watch with your teen, particularly female teen, because again, this is a romance, kind of a love triangle, not really difficult love triangle, watch this film. I find this one more entertaining. It's a more modern take. She's the Sabrina in this film is far more intelligent and far more grown up. There's a bigger difference between the two. In the previous one, again, it's kind of the idea that she's gotten a little bit older. She has a poodle. She's cut her hair, but she's become a little bit wiser, but she's not quite grown up because she's still easily coerced by David. In this film, she knows what's going on, and I don't think she has any intention of having sex with David. She's kind of letting him play it out, and kind of this is more of a dream thing of her always wanting to be in this conservatory with him. And then, of course, Lyons tries to buy her off, and she doesn't go for it because she knows what's going on. So this is a great film. It's one of my favorites, even though it doesn't do very well. I know in some of the reviews they say you really can't compare the two because they're completely different beasts. There's a huge time difference. I mean, 1954 to 1995 is a huge time difference. So that's really it for this review. I'm going to cut this off. Again, I recommend both. This is really more middle school, high school. If you're looking at film comparisons, you're looking for something, particularly the modern one, something fun to watch with your daughter, something that's definitely, the Sabrina in the modern version is definitely more of a role model because again, she comes into her own and she learns to take care of herself and she becomes a photographer and she's not falling for nonsense in this one. So, and it's a little bit more relatable as opposed to if you're looking at the older one, which is more, you're watching it for nostalgia reasons. You're looking at Audrey Hepburn. You're looking at the old classic films. So they're very different. One's a modern, fun film to watch. The other one's definitely something you're looking at if you're interested in classical films and Audrey Hepburn specifically, or Humphrey Bogart, or whatever the guy's name was. I'm not familiar with that era. So I'm obviously aware of who Audrey Hepburn is and who Humphrey Bogart is because I don't live in a cave. I'm aware of the world. So, and I loved Audrey Hepburn's style. So that's it for this review. If you like what you see, I do mostly, this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Mostly I do regular film reviews and book reviews focusing more on children and a sprinkling of travel stuff and non-religious, aka secular homeschooling videos, which is again why I comment on how this can be used in homeschooling. Sometimes, like I said, the old films, or you're trying to take a day off and just want to have something fun to watch with a daughter or a son who's interested in fashion in New York. It's a fun film to watch. Both of them are in their own way. So that's it for this review. Again, if you like what you see, like and subscribe. Check out what I've got. I have a huge range of stuff already available and a whole bunch more planned. So thank you.